I was listening to this interview that Tori Amos gave with Rick Beato. He's a YouTuber. He's great. And at a certain point, he said, oh, so that record, Little Earthquakes, came out when Tori Amos was 29. And I was thinking to myself, well, 29 is when we have our Saturn return. Most of us, it's between the age of 29 and 31. And I'm like, okay, where is her Saturn? I have to see where her Saturn is. So I look at her birth chart, and Saturn is in the third house of voice communication, and it's in Aquarius. The rebel Aquarius is not conventional. Aquarius, the exile, it can be too objective, like disconnected from the heart. So there's a lot to say, but Saturn is the ruler of her south node, Capricorn. One of the songs on that wonderful record, Little Earthquakes, is called Silent All These Years. And I mean, it just jumps out at you that the ruler of the south node, so we're looking at what went wrong, the ruler is in the third house. So she was silenced, and it's Aquarius. It has to do with freedom. I started making the correlations, and then I said, okay, I want to do a video about Tori Amos. Okay, so Tori Amos says in this interview that since she can remember herself, everything she heard she could play. So she was a prodigy. She was accepted on full scholarship at the Peabody Conservatory at the age of 5. I mean, think about it. When she was 5 years old, she was accepted to this really good music and dance academy on full scholarship. Now, the problem was, she said, unfortunately, she was this prodigy, right? She could play, Beatles catalogs, scores of music. And then they taught this method that's called, I never heard it till that interview, it's called hot cross buns. They would use it to teach beginners. And for her, it was a punishment. She felt she was being punished. It was a torment. She said that she would cry every day for the first year and a half, but she cried alone. She said she never showed it to anybody. Capricorn, Capricorn is the hermit. It's like stoic. I'm not going to show my suffering, my pain. Okay, and then she says that she had a smart mouth, and that one day she asks this professor, she says, why don't you teach us the Beatles? And the professor says, in 30 years, nobody's going to remember who the Beatles were. To which she answered something, she didn't say what, but because of her smart mouth, she was thrown out of this academy. So by the age of 11, she was already thrown out. Okay, now throughout the years, Tori Amos had been writing songs, her own compositions. And when she got a little bit older, like late teens, I think, she started sending out demos to record companies, but she kept getting rejected. She kept getting rejected over and over again. Nobody wanted to produce her music. And she said that after so many years and so many rejections, she started listening to the voices from within the music industry. That is, she started chasing trend. And she says, big mistake. She says that was a mistake, because what happened is that she diluted her voice. She diminished. She watered down her voice. And Saturn in the third house of voice, the ruler of the south node. Okay, the voice is Aquarian, and Aquarius is rebellious. The industry did not want that. So she started diluting her voice, and she formed this band. They were playing for a few years. But this is a very, very important line. She says that listening to people in the music industry and making the music that they thought she should make, she said that was a big mistake. And this is the line. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. That is very Capricorn, okay? That is so Capricorn, because Capricorn is an achiever. Capricorn sets a goal and will do everything to reach that goal. Capricorn ruled by Saturn. Saturn is about overcoming obstacles. There's a strategy for the long haul, and it's about perseverance, and whatever the hardships are, I'm going to get there. But what happens in the meantime is that they disconnect from their true self, because that thing that they thought that they needed to do and that they could do didn't represent who they really are. And that's what happened with Tori Amos. Unfortunately, most of us go through some breakdown in whatever shape or form that it takes. to start to change the course of our lives and to start healing those old wounds. And what happened with Tori Amos is that there was this magazine back then, before social media and all that. There was a magazine called Billboard, and they would review, music and albums and all that. And apparently, she was called Bimbo in one of those Billboard things. And then she walked into this cafe, bar, a hangout place for the industry, where the industry would hang out. And she heard people kind of softly giggling. And then she realized why they were giggling, because of that thing that they called her on Billboard. And she ran home crying, just collapsed, crying on the floor, and asked herself, how did I get from prodigy to bimbo? And then she was so upset, she went to a friend of hers and just sat at the piano and started playing. And the friend looks at her and says, this is the music that you should be doing. This is what you're playing now. That's you. This is what you should be playing. And Tori says that from that moment, she didn't look back. She bought herself a piano, and she said she didn't look back. Now, I think, and I'm almost positive, that this incident happened when she says in the interview that this was in her mid-20s, or actually then she says, I was already actually further on in my mid-20s. So when we're about 27, we have our progressed lunar return, which is a time when, I talk about this in my video about the 27 Club. And this happens roughly 2.5 years before the Saturn return. So think about the difference between moon, the symbolic moon, and Saturn. So the moon is the heart, okay? So in this period of time when we are going through the progressed lunar return, meaning that the moon by progression hits your natal moon, okay? So that's about a 27 year cycle. The moon is your key to your happiness. And it doesn't have to do with logic, really. It's like, am I happy now? But also, if I'm not happy now, do I have an image in my mind of myself being happy? And if you do have an image in your mind that this thing right now, maybe I'm miserable, but if I do this, if I learn that or whatever, that'll make my life more meaningful. That's more who I am. Then you start working towards that. And by the time that your Saturn return happens, then that comes into form. Then that is going to manifest in the world, in your life, because Saturn is the principle of reality. When she gave her songs to Atlantic Records, I think it was, when she was approaching the Saturn return, she's a pianist. All of her songs she's singing and playing the piano. But they said to her, okay, we'll take your songs, we'll produce this record, but we're taking away the pianos and we'll replace them with guitars. And this time, Saturn return, she says to herself, I knew that as an artist and a person, I wanted to wake up with self-dignity as an artist. And I said, good luck or something like that. But she didn't agree to that. Good for her. She stood up to what she wanted. Now, besides the Saturn return, there was a lot more going on regarding the karmic wave. Now, transit in Uranus and Neptune were in a conjunction in Capricorn, Uranus and Neptune, on Tori Amos's south node, meaning opposing her north node. I mean, Uranus and Neptune on the south node, and the Saturn return. Wow. Okay. Now, Uranus is the planet of individuation. It also is a very, very extremely important and prominent planet in Tori's chart because it's conjunct her sun. Look at that stellium. It's Venus, Sun, Uranus. So she's Venusian. She's an artist. She's Sun conjunct Venus. Uranus is the planet of individuation. It asks us, who would you be if you weren't born in this city, in this country, if you weren't raised in this specific family? Who would you, the real you, your soul, who would you be? So Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, the modern ruler, is asking you to figure that out, okay, and go against the grain sometimes. It's different for everyone. But Uranus here, right there on her south node, is asking her to release, other people's expectations of her and to liberate herself and to become herself. I mean, Sun conjunct Uranus. And then we have Neptune here, conjoining this Uranus, conjoining the south node. I mean, the power. Well, this period of time in Tori Amos's life is crazy. That the energy of creative liberation, I would say, is huge. Okay, Neptune also has to do with transcending the ego. And if you think of Neptune, Saturn, it's almost like, I think they're opposites. And she's got them all, which is great. She was born a prodigy. She was born a master at her craft already. And Neptune says, okay, let go of that, all those restrictions, Capricorn, and what I need to do. This is what I need to do. These are my duties. I need to survive. No, you need to channel, goddess. You need to channel what? Scorpio in her natal chart. You need to channel your whatever the muses are telling you to, in complete honesty, Scorpio. Now, I was talking about the 8th house, North Node, and which calls for brutal honesty, you could say. So remember how she said that her voice was diluted and that she was silent or silenced all these years. So the institution wasn't the only thing that tried to silence her, or, her father and what his belief, represented, devil music, or the music industry. But in 1985, Tori Amos was 22 years old, and she was playing bars in Los Angeles. And something happened to her that I'm going to speak about carefully. And I think if you know this record, you probably know what I want to talk about. So she was raped by someone that she trusted, someone that she offered a ride home. Now, what did she do with that? She sat at the piano and wrote a song called Me and the Gun. And think about the 8th house, breaking taboo. Think about her Scorpio ascendant. The ascendant is how I dawn on people. It's how I carry myself in the world. Scorpio. And also think of the Cancer. I'm going to go deep into what I feel about things, and I'm not going to be afraid. The 8th house has a feeling of underlying power to it. And what she did was to definitely take her power back, and not only that, but to empower other women who told her what that song did to them, and men. Men, unfortunately, are also sexually abused. So talk about what she did. It's just her voice, a cappella, unaccompanied, completely alone. The woman who'd been silenced her entire life, stripped away of every instrument, every layer of sound, every place to hide, stood in the room every night when performing the song with nothing but her voice, nothing but the voice they tried to take from her, singing about taboo material. 8th house, completely honest, completely and totally personal. Okay. Now, another thing, I mean, what a time this is. I mean, look at transiting Jupiter. Remember when I said that the record company, they said, okay, we'll make a record with you, but we want to take away the pianos. And Jupiter asks us, wherever it is in the natal chart, as well as transiting Jupiter, what if it's triggering a point in your chart, it's going to ask you, how much have you been underestimating yourself? Do you have faith in yourself? Because as the ruler of Sagittarius, Jupiter is very much about faith. Do you think you deserve, this Jupiterian expansion and all the good stuff that comes with it? And it's conjunct Tori's Uranus, the truth of her uniqueness. And she's standing there and saying, I ain't gonna allow you to take no pianos away. That's me. So I'll give you the song or the 4 extra songs that you want, and that's what happened. Jupiter. Wow. I'm almost on the midheaven. Your public persona. I mean, there's more to say. There's so much more to say just about her natal chart. But in this video, I wanted to talk about the karma and the courageous journey, I guess you could say, that led to the beginning of what we know of Tori Amos's career. And so, hooray. And I will see you next time.